What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Logridge, your host of the show. All right, guys. Week 6 is rapidly approaching. Well, the main slate of games anyway, right? So we've got the main slate of games coming up for Week 6. So considering the fact that we're, less than 48 hours away from football, I have got your must-start players for the week here. Now, if you watch my channel, you probably already know this, but I'm never going to include the obvious must-starts. These are going to be guys that you might be kind of on the fence about, and they might currently be on your bench, but I want to encourage you to make sure to plug these guys into your lineup because they have week-winning upside, and I think they're going to explode in Week 6. So I am going to start right here with the very first player on my list, and that's DeAndre Swift. Now, this is a guy who I'm pretty much going to consider him matchup-proof at this point. I mean, running behind the Eagles' offensive line with his elite explosiveness and big playability, I'm not really worried about the defense no matter who he's going up against because it's just so incredibly hard to stop this Eagles offensive line from creating huge holes for DeAndre Swift to run through. He's averaging like over 7 yards a carry since taking over the running back one role in Philadelphia. And the dude is just hyper efficient, as I knew he would be behind this offensive line. Definitely going up against a tough Jets defense. But what you got to keep in mind is this. The Eagles are probably going to destroy the Jets in this game. I mean, there's about a 95% chance that the Eagles are playing from ahead in this game from the very get-go, which means increased volume for DeAndre Swift. We know that the Eagles, like most teams, love to run the ball when they're ahead in games. DeAndre Swift is a smash play because of this. If he had over 20 carries this week, I wouldn't be surprised. The touchdown upside is always there being in this Eagles offense. I love DeAndre Swift this week. Don't consider having him on your bench. Even though it's a tough matchup, you have to play him. Next player on my list is going to be Jordan Addison. Now, obviously, he's the number one wide receiver in the offense now since Justin Jefferson is going to miss quite some time, actually. And this is going to provide Jordan Addison a huge boost. I mean, we've already seen him be able to produce pretty good fantasy numbers, even with JJ in the lineup. Now, granted, the overall efficiency of this offense is not going to be as good without Justin Jefferson. But Jordan Addison is going to get twice as many targets. All right, so considering that we are going to not only see a slightly increased target share, we're going to see a massively increased target share with Jordan Addison, with Justin Jefferson being out of the lineup, going up against a very exploitable Chicago Bears defense. I love Jordan Addison this week. There is no way you can have this guy on your bench. Next player on my list is going to be Jaylen Waddle. Now, Jaylen Waddle has not had that explosion game yet, not one of them. He hasn't had a game where he's had more than 25 PPR points. He hasn't had a game where he's had more than 20 PPR points. But the floor has been very consistent. We know that he's going to get you guaranteed production, and you've got to figure the ceiling game is coming at some point, right? It's not just going to be Tyreek Hill being the main guy in the offense every single week for the rest of the entire season. There's going to be weeks where Jaylen Waddle gets heavily involved because, especially with Devon Achane out, you got to figure that teams are going to be selling out to stop Tyreek Hill. They're going to be double teaming Tyreek Hill. Now, granted, a lot of times that doesn't even work and Tyreek Hill still gets his way. But there's going to be weeks where the best option to pass to is Jaylen Waddle because he's just more open than anybody else. And let's not forget how talented this guy is. We know how fast he is. He's part of this track and field offense that's just way too fast for any defense to really cover. And you got to figure that big game is coming at some point. Going up against Carolina, definitely a defense that Jaylen Waddle can exploit and absolutely go off. I think we're going to see Jaylen Waddle with his first big game this week. Now, some people might think that he's an obvious must-start. So I wasn't sure how people would think about this because I was thinking, people might think this is an obvious must-start. But there are people that have Jaylen Waddle on their bench. I'm in leagues where I see that people aren't going to be playing Jaylen Waddle this week unless they're messing with me and they're going to play him at the last second, which I highly doubt. Bottom line is, Jaylen Waddle is on some people's bench, and he can't be. As of right now, you still need to have Jaylen Waddle in your lineup every single week. Now, if we go another 2 or 3 weeks of him not performing, then our hands are going to be tied. We can only let him screw us over for so long, but you've got to figure that big breakout game is coming. I feel like it's just inevitable for Jaylen Waddle. So for now, especially against the bad Carolina defense, Jaylen Waddle, you're going to want to start him. Next player on my list is going to be Christian Kirk. Now, obviously, Christian Kirk, he's been a little bit inconsistent, just like Calvin Ridley, but most weeks he's showed a very, very good floor. He showed the ability to have those ceiling games, and I still think that this Jacksonville offense is going to be very good, right? So this week, I love Christian Kirk. I think that him and Ridley are going to be kind of neck and neck as far as overall target share for the rest of the season. I still think that Calvin Ridley is going to be the wide receiver one in this offense when it's all said and done. But this week, I'm going to go ahead and play Christian Kirk. I still think this guy has been producing a little bit too much for you to actually have him on your bench. Go ahead and plug him into your lineup this week. Next player on my list is going to be DJ Chark. Now, you got to figure that the Carolina Panthers are going to be playing from behind in this game. I would be very surprised if the Panthers had a lead for a large portion of this game. Playing from behind means increased target share for wide receivers. DJ Chark has actually been pretty productive. I mean, Adam Thielen has obviously stole the show so far, so we haven't really been able to see DJ Chark become the number one wide receiver in the offense, but I don't think anybody necessarily expected that anyway. In fact, I expected kind of a three-way split in targets between really a four-way split between Terrace Marshall, Mingo, DJ Chark, and Adam Thielen, right? But Adam Thielen is apparently the target hog in this offense. Will it continue to be that way remains to be seen, but that's certainly what it is right now. Adam Thielen is the main target hog. And the thing about DJ Chark is he's typically a little bit big play dependent, but I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the amount of targets he's getting. You know, he's averaging 5-6 targets a game, right? So this is decent. It's not like he's just getting that Deshaun Jackson workload where they're throwing two bombs to him downfield and that's all he's going to see. No, he's catching passes at all levels of the field. He's not just only a deep threat. That's a little bit of a misconception. This dude can catch passes at all levels of the field, and he also has that elite big play ability and ability to make a big play downfield because of his elite speed and size. So DJ Chark, massive weekly upside. You got to make sure that you're playing in the right matchups. He's definitely not a guy you want in your starting lineup every week. But this week against an exploitable Miami secondary, this is a DJ Chark week. This is one of those weeks where you plug DJ Chark into your lineup. I'm telling you, you want to have DJ Chark in your lineup this week. He's going to have one of his bigger games of the season. Next player on my list is going to be Brian Robinson Jr. against Atlanta. Now, Atlanta can certainly give up yardage to running backs. We've seen it so far this season. Atlanta is not a good football team. I think that the Washington football team will probably be playing from ahead. One of the easier things to predict in fantasy is game script, right? Right up there with target share and, opportunity share with running backs. We can reasonably expect game script to go a certain way based on, which team is better. It doesn't always end up that way, and obviously there's surprises every week in the NFL, and the team that we think is going to be playing from behind ends up playing from ahead. It certainly happens, but most of the time we can predict this, right? The Washington football team is probably going to be beating Atlanta. They're a better football team. Neither team is good, but Atlanta is just terrible. I'm going to say that there's a 70% chance that the Washington football team has a lead for the majority of this game. Okay, what does that mean? It means volume for Brian Robinson Jr., right? He's not really as much of a pass-catching back, so when they're playing from behind, I kind of start to lean towards Antonio Gibson, but when they're playing with the lead and game script is in their favor, I like Brian Robinson. Couple that with the fact that he's been pretty impressive. I mean, the dude is a talented running back, and, this is really his first season where he's fully healthy because that dick decided to shoot him in the leg. And, he really wasn't himself in previous seasons because he was recovering, from that injury, right? So Brian Robinson Jr., I like what I've seen from him this year. I love the matchup against Atlanta. I don't think that Atlanta can stop Brian Robinson Jr. I think that the run game will be very, very effective for the Washington football team this year. Brian Robinson Jr., to a degree, is a matchup-dependent running back because his offense just isn't explosive enough to take a lot of the attention off him. But against bad run defenses, you're always going to want to start this guy because he's got the talent and he's getting the volume in this game. I can assure you, Brian Robinson Jr. is a smash play for Week 6. Yeah. Next player on my list, final player here is going to be Matt Stafford. Now, Matt Stafford against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, obviously, if you've got Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Patrick Mahomes already played this week. Jalen Hurts, right? If you have the obvious must-start quarterbacks, do not plug Matt Stafford in ahead of these guys. But if you're like me, I typically wait on quarterbacks in drafts, right? So a lot of times I end up streaming a quarterback at a position. I like to have that ace quarterback, but it's just that earlier in my draft, other positions are just more of a priority for me. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I end up streaming a quarterback. This week, in one of my biggest money leagues, I am streaming Matt Stafford because, I drafted Deshaun Watson to be my quarterback. He's out again this week. They had a bye last week. This week, he's still out with an injury. Dak Prescott's been absolutely terrible. I've been kind of flip-flopping between Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott. It's been okay. as far as Deshaun Watson. Dak Prescott's been pretty terrible a lot of times because of game scripts and Cowboys playing from ahead in games just because of their defense and Dak not needing to throw a lot of passes. But that's not an excuse. I think that Dak definitely isn't the fantasy quarterback that he used to be, remains to be seen. But by far and away, my best option this week is Matt Stafford. Even though Dak Prescott has a very good matchup against the Chargers in what could be a shootout game, I still am going to lean towards Matt Stafford even over Dak Prescott, because playing up against Arizona can actually score more points than a lot of us expected them to do. So it's not like the Rams are going to just run clock in this game. On top of that, it's the Rams. They pass the ball more than almost anybody in the league. Matt Stafford is coming out like every week and throwing 30 freaking pass attempts. This is a very pass-heavy offense. This is a very weak defense against the pass, very exploitable. The combination of a healthy Cooper Kupp and a healthy Puka Nacua, my gosh, this team is going to be passing the ball like crazy. I like Matt Stafford to have over 30 pass attempts in this game. And I think that he's absolutely going to light the scoreboard on fire. Obviously, if you have a mega stud, you're not playing Matt Stafford over him, but Matt Stafford is the ultimate streaming option this week if you're streaming a quarterback or you're just not confident in the quarterback that you have plugged in currently. So Matt Stafford's on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues. Go pick him up and plug him into your quarterback one spot. He's going to have a huge week. All right, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Just wanted to let you guys know, I have started a sports betting tier for my Patreon channel. So if you want to go on over to my Patreon, I'm going to put the link in the description of this video. And you can go over there and, for $5 a month, you can basically get a ton of my fantasy football advice. It's too much to even really talk about. You just have to go over and look at it. But it definitely includes rankings, rest of season rankings, everything like that. And for the $10 tier, I'm including a lot of sports betting advice. So like giving out the parlays, because on Underdog Fantasy, I get into some parlays like every single week. I usually have at least 2 or 3 parlays every single week, if not more. So I'm pretty heavy into the sports betting on Underdog Fantasy. So anybody that joins my elite member tier, which is $10 a month, I'm pretty much going to tell you the bets that I am making. And, obviously it's up to you to decide if you want to play those bets or not. But if you join that tier, you can at least get my input for what bets I have for the week. And I plan on making people a lot of money on my elite membership tier on my Patreon this year. So it is $10 a month, but you're going to make a lot more than that with my sports betting advice. I'm very experienced at this. Obviously, I don't talk about it a lot on my channel because this is a fantasy football channel and that's the main focus. But I do dabble in some sports betting. I've been doing it for years. I love it. I've had some pretty good success. So if you want my advice on sports betting, go join my Patreon. Also, it's going to give you my rankings, priority answer to lineup questions and everything like that. Yep, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Catch you later.